we've been doing this a long time, and we've went from absolute startup to having done deals in I think 29 states
Okay.
and counting. And so I just went through the deals with the purchase team of what we have closing here coming up. And so
That was fun. I got to sit in on that a little
yeah,
bit this morning.
yeah. So we got good deals all around, which brings me to the deal of the day. This is a deal where we bought this one in Mississippi. We're now getting the contract on the sale. And so I just kind of want to bring it full circle. This is kind of how the deal worked. We bought it subject to, no, I'm sorry, some now, some later. Property was free and clear as a double wide on a little bit of land in Mississippi. We bought it for $30,000, 15 now, and 15 in payments across time at 0% interest. Okay, we're selling it owner finance at 80 with 5K down. And so I'll have about $10,000 in cash buried into the deal.
Yeah.
But that $10,000 is creating basically a $70,000 note.
Uh-huh.
So I personally believe that any time you can buy something worth $70,000 for 10, maybe we should do it.
Yeah. What's your interest rate on?
This happened, but it was 8.1%.
Oh, I like it.
James put it together. He said the interest rate's 8.1%. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't know how that happened.
James may be taking a little long.
It might have been 8.5, and he's getting 0.4.
You might want to check that contract.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. Good thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, where else are you gonna even? How much was the total we paid for it? 30.
30, 15 now, 15 later.
Yeah, but all of it. Well, your 10 you put in might have a little cost to it, but
deal to create $430 a month. So we're right at 50% cash on cash.
Okay.
For 30 years.
Uh-huh.
So it's tough to beat that.
The small ones a lot of times too, they seem to be the ones that they keep them in place. They keep your money in play and
Yeah,
don't
they do.
cash you out.
Yeah. We never expect to pay off on this.
Yeah.
So good little deal. Good little deal. Today we're talking about staying in hope. Staying in hope. And I'm not trying to be super woo woo. I think people would describe Tony's laughing. Describe me as fairly pragmatic.
I would say I'm in a conversation with Mr. Unwoo Woo.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's the accountant in me.
He was that fella in the Hangover that jumped out of that trunk of that car. Do you remember that? Did you see the movie The Hangover?
I've never seen that.
Everybody else knows it.
Except for Lucas.
Lucas, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So we're talking about staying in hope. And, part of this happened, the idea for this segment happened because after our last episode, which was The Journey is the Destination,
Mm-hmm.
I think that some people took it to be a little bit grim. That maybe because they don't enjoy the journey as much as they think the destination is going to be.
Right.
And so
Yes.
it was maybe a little bit of a letdown. And so staying in hope, I think, is kind of the part 2 of what we were talking about.
Uh-huh.
Right? Because
it really is. What I just had, hang on to that, because the picture I just had was probably children. I mean, when my daddy said, hey, listen, the first time, we're going to go to the beach, kids.
Yeah.
Well, we'd never been to the beach before, so our excitement wasn't that much. We didn't know. But the second time he said, let's go to the beach, and we'd already tasted it once.
Yeah.
Look out. I slept them last 3 nights in the car before we left to go.
I always, and you would go down to Pensacola Beach,
yeah,
correct?
Pensacola.
And because we've been down there together. And I remember every time that I see that sign, I think of you.
Yeah.
Because you would say that, we knew we were there whenever we saw that big sign.
Oh, yeah. And we didn't even have the money to stay on the beach.
Yeah.
So there was a little 2-story motel, like it was built in the 50s,
Yeah.
on the land side.
Right.
And the price was way down. And we'd stay in that little hotel room. And it's first time me and my brother, it's probably the only time we get to stay in a big bed together.
Yeah.
We stayed in a bigger bed as boys on vacation down there in that motel than we did when I left to go to college. And I was 6'8" and he was 6'5", and we were sleeping in the same full-size bed.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
He was the happiest boy on the planet when I left to go to college.
I believe that. I would be too. I would be too.
But the
So
second time, that point, there's this, once you've tasted it,
yeah,
then when you go back, you have an expectation now you didn't have before.
that's right. And I think that's why it's much, much easier for someone that has done one deal
Yeah.
to do that second deal.
Yeah.
So for me, in my story, it took me 8 months to get to that first deal.
Really? You know, I've never heard that part.
Yeah, it took me 8 months. I was putting out bandit signs 3 a.m. I had a lot of gut checks because so I would get up at 3 a.m. every Saturday morning to put my signs out, the We Buy Houses signs. And because I didn't have enough money to buy my next set of signs, I would go out 3 a.m. on Monday morning to pick them up before the codes people came out to get them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a lot of gut checks because, you know, I started seriously the real estate investing business January of 2010 because that's when I had retired my real estate license. Because, you know, I knew that I couldn't really wear both hats. I couldn't sell real estate as a realtor and be an investor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I retired my real estate license to do investing, having never done an investment deal. So I burned the bridges.
Mm.
And so, but I would have a lot of mornings. It'd be just over freezing. It'd be 34 degrees. So it just warm enough that the signs would still go down in the ground. The
Oh
ground
yeah.
wasn't frozen.
Oh yeah.
And my wife would be all warm asleep, and that bed would be awful warm. And now I remember there were a lot of mornings where 10 or 15 minutes I'd lay there, just how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
How bad do you want
Oh yeah.
it? You know? And so, and I didn't miss a single week, not a single week. And sometimes it would be sleeting. And I would just say, hey, nobody else is out here doing this. You know, I'm going to get me that deal. And it got to where I knew I was making $75 per sign. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'd done some deals and I knew what my numbers were. And so then it became fun because I knew what I made that day putting those signs out,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
You know,
So,
sometimes like when you're describing that, I'm seeing something switch for me that I haven't seen before. Like I used to would think that um, the little magic would be you laying in the bed saying, you know, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? And the big magic is when the deal closed and you got a check for $71,000. But it's just the reverse.
yeah.
It takes more energy. It takes more want to lay in that bed and saying, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? Than it does to drive across town to a title company and pick up a check.
Right.
The big magic is the hard work you did getting out of that bed at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And so, had I not had the idea that I had hope that this would work one day, I didn't know when. But one day this would work for me. When I hadn't been really successful at anything else,
Mm-hmm.
then I would have never had the ability to stay within the business.
Mm.
You know, and so I feel like today is part 2 of what we were talking about last time.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I think part 1 is correct, but possibly incomplete.
Yeah.
That the journey is the destination, because once you get to the first destination and the second one and the third one, you realize that it's really not as great as you thought it would be. But if you fall in love with the journey of self-improvement across time, then it's always a journey that never ends.
Whew, you've backed up. You've backed your payoff up to where your payoff was the getting out of that bed.
Yeah, that's right. And
Unless,
falling in love with being the only one out there that's doing it.
yeah, yeah. Unless you're, I mean, for so many of us, we set our payoff at the check.
Right.
We will, most of the time we will never get to the check if the doing the work, if doing the script, following the script, if putting out the bandit signs at 3 o'clock in the morning, if whatever it is, if that is not payoff to us, we'll never get probably to the other payoff.
That's right. That's right. And so
Somebody needs to write that down.
one micro, maybe this episode's not going to be as bad as we thought. One micro variable within this that you can always test yourself on this is, how do you feel about spending money on ads? Okay. So I would have times, I remember whenever I got to where I was spending $1,000 a day on ads, and I thought, gosh, like I would look at my ads account daily and be like, oh man, we spent $1,000 today. And it would, and I was a believer in ads.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel comfortable to me.
No.
Okay. And then I got to the point where I would get excited about spending more.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the difference there. If spending money on your business is a point of pain, then you're going to shy away from pain. But if it's a source of pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
you know what you're building, you're excited about the inputs versus the outputs, then you have staying power that other people just don't have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I feel like last week was a little bit incomplete, and so after thinking about this, it's like, okay, hope. What does that mean? Well, the first thing that I want to submit to you guys is that hope is a factor of certainty. If you have certainty in the outcome, then hope is going to be there. Hope begins to diminish whenever you feel uncertain about what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which I think is just really a factor of self-confidence in a way.
Yeah, I do think self-confidence has a lot to do with it. I'm wondering too, when you were saying that, if being wired more pragmatically so that you really see numbers more clearly
Yeah,
also helps with, look, this is just a matter of of numbers.
probably.
You and I have talked about how differently we're both wired.
Yeah.
And so I'm not as much of a pragmatic. Now I will say this last 38 years I've spent with you, which is what it feels like to a feeler,
Yeah.
who is trying to live in a pragmatic world like we're in there. What I just wrote down is until the upfront payoff on the small disciplines are bigger than the the payday, you probably won't make it to a lot of paydays.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think that this happens over time. But for me, at least, hope is a factor of certainty.
Yeah.
If I feel certain that the outcome is assured, then
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of hope in that. And there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of energy in putting forth the effort to get there.
Uh-huh.
So, we talk about this with raising private money. If you knew whenever you talk to that 100th person that the answer was yes
Mm-hmm.
and your deal is funded,
You wouldn't mind the first 99
no, you
no's.
wouldn't care at all. And you would probably literally have that done in one day.
Yeah.
As opposed to people, they drag and they think about it. Well, what do I need to do? Where really it's just hammering the sphere of influence.
We also look at those first 99 before that 100th yes came along as no's. And they're not no's.
Yeah.
They're not no's. They're just, this one doesn't work for me yet. This is bad timing for me if I'm a lender. I've already got too much money out right now.
Yeah.
Or that's not doesn't fit in the portfolio of what I'm looking for right now. It may feel like a no to you, but it's not a no to the person who is giving it. It's just this is not a fit for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So hope is a factor of certainty. And to me, certainty is a factor of time frame. Certainty is a factor of time frame. So what I mean by that is it's like what time frame are you putting yourself on? So it's like, okay, I'm a new investor. I have a hope to be a successful investor. Well, what time frame are we putting on ourselves? Because it's pretty difficult to do something for 10 years and to not get pretty darn good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like, okay, I'm 36, I've played no piano. If I decided today that piano is going to be a focus in my life, at age 46, I would be pretty darn good at piano. Okay.
Yep.
Whether that's anything athletic, running, swimming, which I'm trying to figure out how to do at distance, um, whatever is of value for you, if you make it a focus for 10 years, then you can do almost anything. Okay. The problem comes with like, I want to do this within 3 months. I want to do this within 6 months because there's a whole lot to learn. And not only that, there's a whole lot of growth that has to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can do that in 1 month if you're able to start the ground at 100, start day one at 100%.
Right.
But when you're getting into something that you've got to learn on the front end,
Yeah.
your time, it does start at day one, but it's kind of running. It increases time. Your hope increases, your certainty increases as time goes on before you can hit your stride. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So hope is a factor of certainty. Certainty is a factor of time frame. And so from my perspective, I feel like people lose context of where they are in their journey of growth. Okay. Because we want the outcome, but we're not focused on the input to create the output.
yeah,
and we're
Yeah.
not focused on the longevity of the business, right? Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm saying?
Yeah, because most of us, most of us, especially in, let's say, the first 6 months, if a great deal comes along, we're really surprised by it.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that
Yeah, we're very surprised by it.
to the
It's like,
point that I've had people jump in and say, "I think it's a scam."
yeah, yeah, this can't be.
Yeah,
Um, and then I think about Rickerson over in North Carolina, knocking doors
mm-hmm.
on those pre-foreclosures in this heat.
Yep.
Sometimes we'll Zoom call, and he's driving down the road or he's pulling up to a house, and I'll say, let me see what that one looks like. Well, I'm out here. It's 147.
Dude, he's on a great path, man. He's on a great path.
Yeah, it is. It's and we live in an environment to where we can actually be sloppy and succeed.
Well, it's so funny. I've asked this to groups of people. It's a really fun debate. Would you rather be king of England in the year 1450 or lower middle class today?
Oh, lower middle class today.
Yeah. Some people will say king of England back then. Uh, and the most funny reason that I've gotten is there were no billboards, so you don't have to look at billboards.
No,
I'm like, okay, well, that's not a great reason in my opinion. But
just from an economic standpoint,
yeah,
though.
I mean, even the lower middle class and upper lower class today, they have cars, they have air conditioning, internet, plenty of food from all around the world. Travel reasonably easy. I mean, there's a lot of benefits. Versus King of England, where you very well could be beheaded. you know, so but all that to say, you're right. I mean, even failure today is better than success of prior generations.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
So
So hope is a matter of certainty, and certainty is a matter of time frame, and we lose context of where we are in uncertainty.
right, right. So then that begs the question: well, how do we
I don't
gain?
know if y'all taking notes, but you ought to be, because I am right now.
The question begs to be asked: well, what? How do we gain context? How do we gain context? So my first question back to you would be: what are you committed to? What have you committed to? And if you haven't asked yourself that question, then you have to ask, because you know the commitment needs to be defined. Otherwise, it's not a commitment. It's just an idea.
Most of us just define the goal.
Yeah,
We don't define the commitment.
right. So, and if you're not committed to the time frame, which in my opinion needs to be from now on, because that's what mine was. In my head, many mornings, and this is like sure as the world, I would think like it's 3:30 a.m. It's 34 degrees. I'm freezing my ass off. You can't get warm hopping in and out of a car,
Mm-hmm.
running and putting these bandit signs out. And I would think about, well, if I'm 95 years old, what do I want my deathbed experience to be? And it's kind of morbid, but I think that this is actually good context. It's like, if you judge yourself by this, you're not going to make a whole lot of bad decisions. So it's like 95 years old. Number one, I want my friends and family around me, not because they felt obligated, but because I was good to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that handles pretty much all relational
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, I want to be able to say that I did it, whatever that means. And for me, that meant I don't really have many regrets. I don't think that there's any way to have no regrets, but I don't have many regrets. And that within the business world, that I did what I felt like I could do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I'd never bought a house whenever I'm thinking this. And so for me, it was like, okay, am I willing to be at that point at 95 years old? The doctor comes in and says, I'm sorry, you have a couple weeks to live. and me respond back to him, well, do you have a house that you're hoping to sell? Because I've been working on this for about 60 years and I haven't bought a house yet.
Uh-huh.
So I was hoping that you'd have a house that you were hoping to
Uh-huh.
sell. It's like, that's what I committed to. That's what I had in my head of commitment
Right.
when I was 23. And luckily, it didn't take that long. It only took 8 months versus 60 years. But I was willing to do that.
You know, I'm doing a little play of words over there because it is easy for us to. I mean, we can put this on our wall. We must be committed to the dream.
Yeah.
But if you substitute two other words instead of dream, it's you must be committed to the commitment and the time frame.
Yeah. And again, that's focusing on the inputs versus the output. It's easy to have a dream.
Yeah.
Are you going to do the work?
Mhm.
That's a question.
Yeah.
So how do we gain context within this? Number one, what have we committed to? You need to write down what your commitment is. When it comes to this business or any value system that you have, whether that's fitness or marriage or being a good father or mother, whatever that is, I feel like you need to write it down. And so the question that changes context very, very quickly is this the beginning or is this the end? So let's say that you've been in the business for 6 months, like I had been for 6 months, struggling, and looking back, I was losing more deals than I was making because I just didn't know what a deal was. And I had no idea how to negotiate, and my deal structure was very weak, right? So, but if I looked at this and I said, hey, this is the end of my career, um, but it's, let me back up. If I was within struggle and I looked at it as being, hey, this is the end of my career,
Mm-hmm.
then I have no hope. But if
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it as this is the beginning, I've learned some things. I maybe don't have the output yet, but I'm putting the input in,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then that's going to really, really help everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think that that's the second part of context. So number one, what have you committed to? Number two, is this the beginning or is this the end? And so figure out what you're committed to and write it down.
Is this the beginning or is this the end? I mean, you have to predetermine that there's going to be no end.
Yeah. Or set a date.
Struggle, whatever it is, it's just continue on. It's just learn. It could be a fresh beginning. It could be a new beginning.
Yeah. And so the question really checks your commitment because if you say, well, I'll do this for 3 months, that's not a real effort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know anybody that wants to do something great that says they're going to give themselves 3 months to learn piano
Mm-hmm.
to be great at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the context there, I think, is important. So I'm going to go through this because we're kind of running out of time, but two things that I feel is going to help you stay in hope. So two things to help you stay in hope. The first is community. You have to be based in a community of people that are up leveling together. And so this is a big part of what we do. And this is a big part of, like, we have a support clinic every single day where me or someone here on the team is helping the apprenticeship create what they're hoping to create. And I think the help is important for sure. But I think the most important thing is for the people that are sitting back and just watching. So, like Kane, for example. Kane's a local guy,
Mm-hmm.
came to us as a referral, uh, newer guy. The best thing that he can do is just come to these calls and see other people doing deals. Not because of what he's going to learn about deal structure or how we negotiate, but because he's going to see that this is real. And
Mm-hmm.
so seeing that Christian, who started with us about 60 days ago, I think has 5 under contract right
Yeah.
now. Maybe it was 90 days. Has 5 under contract right now, I believe. And Kane is just starting. Then he can say, well, Christian just started this a little while ago. He was in insurance or is in insurance as an adjuster, but not really like a deep real estate experience. He has some understanding of construction, but like understanding that there are other people that just not long ago are where you're starting and they're able to create.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And everybody's able to create. I mean, there's nobody that comes in there who's not able to create. But the thing today that's like popping me is um, they are committed to their commitment. I mean, and they're committed to a time frame. And I might say, well, they didn't have to find out if they're committed to a time frame or not. He's 90 days, 120 days in. He's got 5 deals under contract. I mean, how did he get so lucky that his leads were that good? Well, I don't know that all his leads are that good.
No, and he wouldn't have said that maybe 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah. Things weren't, and we'll say then things weren't going well then. But I don't know if they were going any different than they're going now. We're getting our eyes on external things instead of on my commitment, my time frame.
Yeah.
And for you, it's interesting because you didn't tie your time frame to how much money you had. If I run out of cash, if I run out of money, then this thing didn't work.
Well, it would have just changed my input.
Right.
But my input was very low. I mean, I was starting back then. You could buy 100 signs for $200, and then plus the stakes and the bottle cap nails. So I might have $3 in a sign and put out 50 a weekend and get 40 of them back. So I mean, I had like 6 months worth of marketing for $300 or $400 plus my gas.
Mm-hmm. I used to go out there to Grand's barn and get pick up blank signs
Yeah,
out there in the back of that barn out there, and sometimes it'd be in the winter, and you'd have to pull them apart because they'd be
yeah,
frozen and in
yeah. That's
boxes,
right. Yeah,
and then head out to wherever, Columbia, Tennessee, or Clarksville, Tennessee, to put signs out on a Thursday night or an early Friday morning, and then
right.
go back and get them if it was a place where they were going to find us. But I mean, it's a totally different mindset. It's really having a positive effect on me too, which I'm glad. It's about time.
Well, it's just too much coffee I've had. So, guys, you've got to get in a community. Like, if you're not in a community of people that are bringing you up, then you are by default in a community of people that are bringing you down.
Leaving you where you are.
Yeah. And so, like, if you're not growing, you're dying, man. Like, be around people that are trying to make you better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, force you to be better because you're around them.
Mm-hmm.
That's even better way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not trying to make you better because nobody can make you better. But if you're going to remain in this group of people, like, man, I've got to step my game up, or they don't want to be around me,
Yeah.
like put yourself in those positions. So that's the first thing that's going to help you
I
stay
like
in
it.
hope is community. Number two, I've lovingly referred this as AAA. So we have to do AAA.
Okay.
So I liken it to, we're broken down on the side of the interstate. Who do we call? We call AAA. If we're having a hope issue or we're having a series of doubt thinking, then what we want to do is AAA. So this is three things: affirmations, abundance training, and anchors. So we'll talk about this in context. Affirmations, I think a lot of people understand what this is. For the people that are coming to the mastermind that we have coming up in about 30 days, we have a coffee cup that is going to have my 10 affirmations on it. And we wanted it to face you. So just like this is facing me, Daddy, we love you, Maribeth Mason and Matrix here. Um, I want you guys to be faced every day with saying them. So it's like, and they're kind of tough to read. Might have to get your glasses out, but we put all 10 in a row because we want you guys focused on what's important. And these affirmations, guys, like how I got to the point where it was just 6 or 7 months ago, I wasn't really focused on my health, but I started affirmations first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do I want to accomplish? Okay, I'm going to say I am that person. That changes your daily thinking on what you're choosing for yourself. And now I'm to the point we're training for a triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start off 6 months ago thinking about a triathlon
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
But putting these ideas, planting these seeds grows things.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing. Number one is affirmations. Any
Right.
thoughts on that, Tom?
No, I mean it's dead on. It's dead on. But I think a lot of times in our culture, we stay stuck at affirmations.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of sweat to what comes next. I know that's a struggle for me. It has been for a long time. It's so easy to live. I mean, what you said earlier about would you rather be the king of England or be some? I mean, it is in some ways easy to live in our environment.
Yeah, for sure.
Anywhere in our city, it's tougher in some places than it is at others, and it's still easier than probably a third of the population of the world.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So, uh, affirmations really, really important. Has been a huge part of my growth across the years. Number two is abundance training. So, what I want you guys to do, if you're having a hope issue or you're having a lot of doubt, is I want you to put yourself in positions where you're doing something that you enjoy, but you can't really afford to maintain yet. So, I remember me and Tony one time we spent $2,000 or $3,000 on clothes at a nice men's clothing place.
Give a little shout out to Levy's and
Yeah,
Green Hills.
Levy's in Green Hills. We went and saw our main man there, Harry Webster, who
Uh,
has since retired. But Harry was there for like 40 years. You know, like started off in his 20s and retired later. But he was that place. But we went and got suited up, and so then you leave feeling better than you went in.
mhm.
You know, and so things like that. Look at houses that you can't afford. Look at $3, $4, $5 million houses if that's something that you want for yourself. It costs nothing but some time to go in and go to an open house and look around,
Mhm.
and then just see yourself like, how would I feel being in this master bath? How would I feel being in this movie theater room? How would I feel being in this wine cellar? You know, and think about, there are people that live that way that are no smarter than you. They just made different decisions to get there.
Right.
So the factor of how you make decisions over time is going to be what creates that kind of wealth.
Mhm.
And so it's just a matter of thinking differently.
Mhm. Yeah. And for me, that's turned out to be nature.
Okay.
Like when I take a hike out in the middle of nowhere and I see how nature just multiplies and just blooms and just boom, and it doesn't need my help.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, the whole everything that exists is abundant all by itself. Why am I not in that flow?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
am I not in agreement with what's happening there? I make this so hard for myself. And the rest of the universe, I mean, the stars don't give a lot of thought to what they're going to do every night.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a situation like that happen. I was on a flight one time and I had a window seat and I was looking down and we were I think we were ascending, and I looked at my thumbnail on the window and I was like, if I ever own that much real estate, then I'll be wealthier than I ever hope to be. And so the context there is like it's one
Yes.
thumbnail across the entire freaking earth.
Uh huh.
It's not that
Uh
much,
huh. Uh huh. It's not.
you know?
It's really not.
So abundance training is going to be really important. Drive one of those cars that you want, but just think about what it takes other people to have that. It's not that much different than what you could be doing already. It's just a matter of making different decisions.
Hmm.
Okay, that's really all it comes down to. And then number three is anchors. So I'm a big believer in this. So whatever your commitment is, whatever you have committed to your goals being, we have to put those in places where we can't get away from it. Okay. So
Mm.
Tony may remember I used to have a fake $100,000 bill
Oh
that,
yeah, first time I ever got in a car with you, it was right there on the
yeah, it
dashboard.
was right there on the dash. And that's when I was trying to get to where we were buying 100K in equity a month. Okay. It switched to $1 million bill,
Hmm. It
you
did.
know? And so,
It did right after you got started. Right after we started buying 100K a month. It wasn't some long term thing. It wasn't when you got to like 700,000. It was right after we got to $100,000 a month. Boom, $1 million one went on there.
yeah. And I had no idea what that even meant.
Yeah.
I had no context, but I knew like, okay, if that's the next step, then that's the next step.
And I don't even think at that time you even knew what the commitment would be at that time. You knew you'd made a commitment to that, but then you go through everything, all the growth, all the handling a disappointment, all that kind of stuff to get to where you're expanded enough to where you can actually don't even realize when you're on that $1 million deal then, but you are already there and you don't even know it yet, but boy, you start to expand big time. I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of a crazy thing. Like we're talking about Oscar Green,
ah,
which could clear 1 million in and of itself.
yes. Might even do it and we not even have to touch it. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah, there's a possibility of that. So, but anchors are going to be really important. You
Yeah.
can't be in a position where you can forget about your goals. So, like the question that I'm going to pose to you is, what were your New Year's resolutions? If you don't know off the top of your head, then
We usually
you
don't
did
know by about February the
correct. But I knew into July that it's like there's I would say maybe 2% of the people listening to this right now are going
hmm
to know. And the reason that you don't know is you didn't create the anchors. So on your bathroom mirror, in your car, in your back pocket, we have thermometers that we used to have here in the office that would gauge our equity position and our cash flow. So like the
Yep.
the fundraising thermometers, we'd have those all over the place. You couldn't get away from it.
Not some fancy stuff. I
No,
mean, hand drawn with the red marker.
yeah, we had the red marker. We had the red marker. So Uh, guys, I hope this was helpful. I wanted to kind of do part two because I felt maybe part one was a little bit too maybe binary or pragmatic, where I wanted to get more into the emotional part of things. And I never even realized that the emotional part was a thing until one time Tony said, "Well, Brad, realize you always say I think, and I always say I feel."
hmm
And I thought, man, that's a different way of thinking. Because even when I tried to say, "Well, I feel like that," I couldn't even do it. You know?
Right, right, right. And it's equally has been equally as hard for me.
Yeah,
I think we have both of them. All of us have both those abilities. It's probably that we major in one and minor in the other.
yeah,
So, like you major in thinking and minor in feeling, and I major in feeling and minor in thinking. But I think a lot of the times we just focus on what we major in,
yeah. That's right.
and we're missing a lot of output because we're not stretching ourselves in an area that's not our go to. It's
Right,
not our first. So
right, right. Guys, you have to stay in hope. So hopefully this is helpful. Check us out, the Investor Creator Community on Facebook, podcast, and on the TikTok. We'll see you guys next week, Tuesday Morning Coffee.
good work, buddy.